Hello buds. Before I start the video, I just want to say that I'm finally part of the Klei Creator Program. So if you want to farm those Twitch drops, you can do that when I'm streaming over on Twitch, or if you want surprise giveaways, then make sure to join my Discord. The link is in the description below. Don't have a Discord? No worries. I'll also be hosting giveaways and competitions for reward codes on stream here on YouTube and Twitch. But if you otherwise want to know when a code's been hidden, yeah, the Discord's going to be the best place to go. Thank you all so much for making this dream become a reality. And if any of you Klei people are out there, thank you so much for letting me reward my community with these epic free codes. Don't Starve Together is a game where you can pick and choose between a wide variety of characters. Some people may pick them for looks, some may pick them for reliability, and some may pick characters based on how easy or hard they are. But which survivor is the easiest? And which is the hardest? Well, today, I'll be going over each survivor and covering how difficult they may be. The reason I'm making this video is because if you don't know, survivors all have a odds of survival rating. This is either slim for quote-unquote easier characters, or grim for quote-unquote harder characters. But I think that this is very misleading for most players, especially new players, so I'm going to be rating each survivor on a few key difficulty levels. How hard it is to survive as the character, day-to-day survival, and more importantly, how hard combat is as said character. So if you're looking for a new main, or just want to see where your main stands, well, let's begin. We're going to be starting, of course, with the poster child, Mr. Don't Starve himself, Wilson. Wilson is touted as the default character in a world full of wacky powers and whatnot, but unfortunately, with the releases of skill trees, many characters are simply losing their downsides. Woody has no downsides, Willow's new upsides heavily counteract her laughable downsides, and Wilson, well, he's just stayed default, and in Don't Starve Together, default is going to skew his difficulty down a little bit. But mostly for combat, because when it comes to survival, Wilson sits comfortably at an easy on the scale. This is due to the fact that many of his skills in his skill tree simply make day-to-day survival easier. If you get a twiggy tree world, then transmuting logs into twigs is going to save you. If you find yourself low on food, refreshing big meats into morsels will also save you. And that's not to mention his super epic beard, which can pretty much replace a thermal stone and insulation for winter. The only season you will struggle with as Wilson is summer, and by then, I would hope you have the basics down. Combat, well, that's another story. Wilson lacks any special combat abilities, and in Don't Starve Together, that's a bad thing. Wilson's combat is very hard, because almost every other character can do what he does, but better when it comes to combat. Yeah, that's right. He doesn't even have anything actively working against him, it's just that everyone else lowers the bar for him, if that makes sense. I don't even think I have much to say here. Wilson is simply at the mercy of whatever weapon you happen to have equipped, and that's it. Sorry, my boy. To recap, Wilson is a character that's great for day-to-day survival, but when you're starting to go down the boss chain, you're probably going to find yourself struggling from the lack of perks you can get from other characters. Next up, we have Willow, the fire starter turned firefighter in a literal sense and figuratively. Willow's survival difficulty is, well, she's easy. In fact, I would say she's even easier than Wilson. Why? For the price of burning a few bees and picking the subsequent skill in her skill tree, you can make yourself something called a fireball. This is a dwarf star that lasts one entire day. This essentially turns winter and sanity off as it counters both of these things. Which is also funny because winter's her only natural counter, doing extra damage to you when you're freezing. But when you can summon a literal dwarf star at the press of a button and a few burnt bees, that really doesn't matter much. Oh yeah, and when summer comes, she's not only naturally resistant to overheating, she can also allow you to stop fires instantly, while being completely immune to them as well. Truly one of the largest quality of life characters out there. Now on to combat. Yeah, was it not obvious? Willow is getting an easy ranking for combat as well. Now it's true, to access some of her best combat abilities, you need the affinity trees, which do, in theory, require you to beat the final bosses. But Klei decided to make these upgrades permanent, so for the sake of this video, every affinity skill is going to be counted as part of the character's kit. Because, well, truthfully, it is. And Willow, well, she's got some of the best. Do you need AoE? Willow's Lunar Fire Razor skill will let you turn embers into a giant lunar fire blast that absolutely melts most low health, easily grouped enemies. like shadows, splomunkies, and spiders. Now for bosses, the Shadow Flame skill is better. You get 5 heat-seeking missiles that absolutely shred bosses without you even having to lay a finger on them. Of course, Willow isn't as easy as they get because she does suffer from one thing, well, 2 technically. Her spells are on a cooldown, and without them she's basically as strong as Wilson with a bleed effect if you use her fire often, and of course you do need to supply her with the embers. But I'm still absolutely comfortable putting her in easy combat tier because I mean, come on. And to recap, for Willow, she'll make survival in combat pretty easy and is a very strong character, all things considered. Next up we have Wolfgang, the strongman. Now Wolfgang's sort of fallen out of favor for a lot of people, you know, all these other characters are getting all these flashy bells and whistles, and Wolfgang is still stuck with his simple 2x damage multiplier. And while 2x damage is certainly nothing to scoff at, it doesn't help him much in a survival score standing. For Wolfgang, day-to-day survival is medium. Not because Wolfgang is weak in survival or anything, but simply because he's, well, underwhelming. His only survival-related perks are his Leg Day skill, which makes him slightly faster when he's not fully buff or fully weak, and his Instamind skills, which do exactly what they say. But he has nothing to combat winter or summer, and he doesn't get to profit from labor like certain other characters. But otherwise, he's more default than Wilson when it comes to survival, so I feel comfortable putting him in medium. For combat, however, ooh buddy, 2x damage may seem boring on paper, but boy does it still absolutely slap in combat. 2x damage is 2x damage. Bosses die 2x as fast, enemies die 2x as fast, and all for the small price of a quick little workout. Yeah, Wolfgang's combat is very easy. He may not have fun techs or anything, but none of that matters when you can just armor up and face tank almost everything to death with little to no repercussions. Okay, yeah, some bosses can't be tanked, but those bosses will still die 2x as fast as they would with any other character. So to recap, Wolfgang is mediocre for survival, but absolutely shines at combat. Completely expected, to be honest. Next up we have Windy, and here we have our very first interesting character. So for survival, I would comfortably put Windy on the easy side of the spectrum, right up with about Wilson. Abigail, while being mostly a combat follower, also kinda makes life just easier for Windy. She'll provide light when leveled up and can give Windy an out from a sketchy fight. And, as if that wasn't good enough, Windy also has access to a Morning Glory Wreath through her skill tree, which lets her drink her own elixirs. One of these elixirs just basically gives her night vision. Yeah, she gets moggles for the price of a few Morning Glory stingers. Oh yeah, and sanity being super high and very not easy to drop. That doesn't make any sense, but you get what I mean, is also pretty nice. But when we move over to combat, well, that's where things get a little more interesting. I'm gonna put Windy at hard. Now wait, before you go to the comments and accuse me of rage baiting, remember combat also includes boss fights. In fact, it includes boss fights more than your run-of-the-mill swarm fights that Abigail would excel at. Abigail can barely handle Deerclops, much less the big bad bosses that you'll eventually have to fight to conquer Don't Starve together. A low skill player will find Windy easy because of the fact that Abigail trivializes things like hounds and spiders, but they're going to be in for a shock when they take on their first boss and realize that it's actually difficult to keep Abigail's vexing on said boss. And without Abigail's vex mechanic, Windy does 75% damage, making her a worse version of Wilson. But I didn't put her under Wilson because, well, yeah, at least she has Abigail. And I mean, Abigail is still a very powerful combat tool. Just remember that you can't rely on her for everything. To recap, Windy is pretty good at day-to-day survival. And while Abigail will make you feel very powerful against your common swarming foes, she's going to struggle against bosses. And that in turn will make you struggle against bosses. Next up we have the Automaton WX78. They are the closest thing we have to a build your own character in Don't Starve Together, and for the purpose of this ranking, I'll be assuming the usefulness of every single one of their circuits. All of this combined makes WX actually very powerful, because winter can be cancelled by a circuit, summer can be cancelled by a circuit, and hell, even nighttime can be cancelled by 2 circuits. The only problem is that hot swapping is difficult thanks to durability and charge loss. But putting that aside, because I hope it will be fixed up in their skill tree, you know, whenever that comes out, I would put WX at an easy-ish ranking on the survival scale. Unfortunately, one of the lowest easy characters so far, but that's just because of hot swapping being an issue. Oh, and I guess WX's downside of wetness being incredibly damaging can actually catch players off guard, and you know, that mid-autumn rain can be lethal for a starting run. When it comes to combat, I actually feel as if WX belongs in medium here. Why? Well, arguably the only reasonable combat circuits WX has access to are their speed circuits, which, when you have 3-socketed, makes WX very slippery. But slippery doesn't exactly equal powerful. I mean, you still have to hit the boss or enemy to do damage. Speed may be king in this game, but it still takes more skill to kite than it does to tank. Sure, WX has some decent tanking circuits in their electro circuits and health circuits, and they aren't a horrible choice, but again, due to the fact that hot swapping is punished, it's not very good to run these two. It's actually just so much better to run triple speed because it also helps with day-to-day life. When WX gets their skill tree, I fully hope this changes their mediocre ranking. Literally all Klei has to do is not punish hot swapping and let people swap circuits easier. Hell, even making them repairable with a station like Wickerbottom's books would be great. To recap, WX is, save for their speed circuits, which are so fun, I love their speed circuits, they are overwhelmingly mid. I really hope that skill tree shows them some love. You know, whenever that comes out. Hey, you know what? Speaking of Wickerbottom, next up we've got Wickerbottom. Yeah, this old lady deserves no less than very easy when it comes to survival. Seriously. Her books make survival trivial. Need supplies? Boom, you've got a book for that. Need food? Boom, you've got a book for that. Want to turn summer off? Boom. Want to turn night off? Boom. There is literally no adversary that Wickerbottom can't face when it comes to survival, that is. She is an absolute powerhouse if your goal is simply to have a high day count or to farm egregious amounts of resources. On the other hand, for combat, I would actually rank Wickerbottom much closer to hard. Not like fully in hard, but like a medium hardish. On paper, she's exactly like Wilson, which is unfortunate. But the only thing saving her from being very hard, like Wilson, is that she can utilize some very powerful techs to handle bosses and hordes. A famous one being the tentacle pits, which will absolutely annihilate single target bosses, pretty much hands-free, and can even put a big dent in AoE bosses. To recap, yeah, Wickerbottom is probably the best when it comes to survival, but she suffers from what I like to call Wilson syndrome when she's drawn into combat, only being saved by her tentacle book, which can be great under the right circumstances. And who knows, if she gets more combat books in her skill tree, this will most likely change. Next up, we have Woody. Yeah, so Woody's gonna be a wash, and any of you who have played as Woody know exactly why. For survival, Woody is very easy. He has access to Werebeaver form for easy gathering, and Goose form for easy running. Oh yeah, his skill tree also lets him have a free walking cane, and he can potentially harvest faster. So yeah, you barely have to even think when you're playing as Woody. It's all pretty much there for you to take. Although I guess I'll be honest, Woody's more on very easy mostly because he just simply doesn't have any downsides. I mean, you do have to transform every full moon unless you get that affinity perk, but other than that, you're dealing with pretty much zero downsides and all upsides with this character. As for combat, Woody gets 2 ratings. On his own, Woody is easy, because Weremoose is basically free armor and hambat damage, as well as having a great AoE attack. But Weremoose suffers from one thing: not having reliable healing. Even Jelly Beans won't allow you to tank most of the later bosses. But if you somehow get a Wartox on your team, congratulations, this is going to turn combat into a holding F simulator. Wartox can keep Woody healed while he tanks and wails on whatever boss happens to be there, turning his experience into a very easy one. To recap, Woody is just an overall super easy character, also very addicting to play because it's really nice never having to worry about armor or weapons. Next up we have Wes. Let's just get this one over with. Wes is very hard for both combat and survival. Low base stats, low damage, it's just not a fun time to be a Wes main, unfortunately. But that's okay. Wes is the challenge character. His whole design is for people to show off that they can play as the character who has nothing going for them. And hey, It makes my job easier. Don't even have to recap it because, yeah. Next up, we have Maxi Boy. Now, for survival, Maxwell's pretty strong. I would say a solid, easy category. Shadow Servants make resource collection an absolute breeze, Shadow Duelists can make short work of your run-of-the-mill mobs, and you basically never have to worry about insanity as him, as long as you aren't overdoing your minions, that is. But other than that, Maxwell does suffer from his reduced health. We'll go over it more in his combat section, but even for standard survival, reduced health is dangerous. Temperature damage will kill Maxwell much faster than other characters, so you have to be on top of it, or you will suffer. Same with hunger damage too, if anybody is still starving in this game. As for combat, well, this is where things get tricky. Now, I, as an experienced player, want to say that Maxwell is very easy, but I've seen plenty of new, inexperienced players pick up Maxwell and proceed to die very quickly. And that's because Maxwell, while he's easy to experienced players, actually does take a decent amount of skill to milk all the value from. So I'm going to throw him in medium. Not because he's weak by any means, no, quite the contrary, he's pretty broken, and I'm really scared to see how he turns out post-skill tree. But he's not a hold F to win character. He's a time your buttons correctly, juggle your own insanity, and potentially hold F to win character. He realistically takes more skill than most other characters, or you can just like get a beefalo, but I don't count those because they're just broken OP and take away all of his downsides, and I don't really like them. There, I said it, my hot take of the day. Anyways, to recap, yeah, Maxwell is a powerful character, but if you want to use him to his fullest, you're gonna have to learn some techs and get at least somewhat skilled at the game. Next up, we have the Valkyrie Warrior Wigfrid. When it comes to survival, Wigfrid is a comfortable low medium. Some people would assume her carnivore diet would make her hard here, and yeah, it does hurt her survivability a little bit, but honestly, meat is already the most abundant source of food within the constant, and unless you're like brand new to the game, you shouldn't struggle with her at all. But other than that, her life and sanity steal will help her sustain herself as long as you keep the combat flowing, which as a Wigfrid player, you should be seeking that combat out. It's your thing, man, you're playing as the combat character, come on. This all means that it should come to no surprise that Wigfrid is a very easy character for combat. She gets natural damage resistance, extra DPS, access to cheap weapons and armor, and a life and sanity steal. Is there really anything she can't do? Want to tank as Wigfrid? Go for it. Most of the time, you can simply out-heal any damage done to you, especially with armor. Wigfrid is also the only character who's given access to forge mechanics, the most important one being the Elding Spear, which has been buffed significantly with the electric changes that were released sometime last year. So not only is she powerful, she's also uniquely fun. A great character for learning standard combat. I didn't even mention her songs either, those can be insane for group fighting. So to recap, Wigfrid is alright for survival, you shouldn't struggle too hard, but when it comes to combat, you will excel and should find barely any trouble. Next up we have Weber, the Spider Boy. Weber's survivability is, I can't comfortably give him higher than a medium. Yeah, he can eat monster meat, and food is just a spider civil war away, but otherwise he's basically just, yeah, that's it. He has his beard, but it's nothing compared to my boy Wilson's beard. And you won't suffer per se as Weber, but you won't exactly thrive. I don't know what else to say about this character. As for combat, well, Weber's a bit of a tricky one. I'm going to say hard. Hear me out. Weber's entire kit, as of right now, is numbers over power. You're supposed to outnumber all of your enemies with spiders, and that works for most of the enemies you'll fight. Hounds are no problem. Hell, even some bosses that are single target can fall to a large enough spider army and some nurses. But you'll quickly learn how weak your spiders are when you go up against even just a simple Deerclops. AoE attacks absolutely shred Weber's minions, and once the minions are gone, you gotta fight Wilson style, which, as we know, isn't easy. So, yeah, I hope this ages poorly and Weber becomes goated with his skill tree, but as of now, Weber's in a bad state, and that's also my recap, I guess. Psst, hey, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you aren't already. Next up, we have Wilba. Wait, what? No, Wormwood. Wrong Hamlet character. Except this isn't a Hamlet video, I've done a few too many of those recently, and I've got to do my mandatory single player pause before getting hyper fixated on it again. Anyways, right, Wormwood, Don't Starve Together edition. Wormwood is, I would say, a pretty solid medium on the survivability scale. He has some traits that help, like being able to make minions that do different things, planting things without tilling, and having bees not attack him. Super important, I know. But his main downside, that being not able to regen health through food, can suck. Trust me, if you've never played Wormwood, the fact that you can't regen health through food will hit you at some point in your playthrough. It can also be a good thing, however, as Wormwood is the only character capable of eating red caps with no downside. As for combat, whoa, Wormwood is fun, that's for sure. But is he effective? Well, yeah, I would say Wormwood is a low easy when it comes to combat. I've always believed that Wormwood is a fighting character disguised as a farming character, and I'll stand by those words. Bramble husks make tanking, the easiest form of combat, way more viable. Bramble traps are powerful for hound waves and spider farming, and if you get some in the ocean, you can make a bramble nuke. I showed that off in one of my earlier videos. And not to mention that Wormwood is the only character capable of wearing and making the endgame Brambleshade armor, which in itself is like Super Thorn's armor. Yes, you do have to reach endgame, but otherwise it's not that bad. Oh yeah, and infinite living logs means infinite dark swords. To recap, Wormwood may not be the best for day-to-day survival, but the tools he has at his disposal make him surprisingly powerful for combat. Now we're on to Worley. Oh god, I really hope this segment ages poorly when his skill tree comes out, because Worley, at his current status, is, well, he's not great. Especially for survival. You know what? I would even say, out of all of the survivors, Worley may be our only very hard survival character. Look, his whole gimmick of not being able to eat anything but crockpot food and getting bored of it isn't exactly that hard to overcome. You can just rotate between, say, meaty stews and meatballs, but Worley gameplay by far takes the most thinking. That's also on top of having basically zero survival buffs. Worley's dishes, besides a certain one that we'll go over soon, are all incredibly underwhelming. He's probably the only character besides Wes that I don't get jealous of when I'm playing as Wilson, and that means something now. As for combat, Worley has access to two things in particular that make Worley much better at combat. But unfortunately, I'm still going to give him a hard here, due to the difficulty of farming the ingredients of said combat dish. As we all know, electric damage is pretty OP in Don't Starve Together, especially recently. And Worley, well, he has a dish that lets him just do electric damage. Add on his famous chili flakes and you can do some pretty crazy DPS for a simple chef. Unfortunately, Volt Goat Jelly takes Volt Goat horns to make, which are very annoying and downright time consuming to farm in mass, and without Volt Goat Jelly, Worley is just Wilson in combat. And we all know what that means. To recap, yeah, don't pick Worley unless you want to have a bad time. Thanks to the power creep of every other character, Worley just kind of fell wildly out of favor. Next up we have Winona, whose survival rating I'm going to stick at a comfortable medium. I can't say that anything she has is too crazy for her survival. She crafts faster, but it costs hunger. She's got her catapults, but those are combat. Spotlights exist, I guess, and they do have that heat lamp, but those are still pretty niche. Overall, I would say Winona is pretty balanced for survival, in a good way. Actually, post-commentary, Polarlotus here, I guess. I just did this while I was editing. I would probably give Winona easy. I forgot about the fact that she can just ignore darkness completely, and she gets those caches from, what's his name? Bruh, what is the old guy's name? Wagstaff. So, yeah, I'm gonna put her in easy. I feel like that's a little better. For combat, though, I would put Winona in a solid easy tier. Catapults are strong, like really strong. If you know how to use them properly, that is. It's true that the days of catapult boats may be gone, well, somewhat gone, but there are still a ton of methods to kill bosses without even lifting a finger. And even if you do want to lift a finger, your catapults will just straight up provide a non-negligible DPS boost. To recap, even though I can't say much about her, I would say Winona is a very strong pick. I just personally don't like playing her solely because of the whole losing hunger when crafting thing. I don't know, man, it just bugs me. Next up, we got Wartox. For survival, I mean, come on. I gotta give this dude very easy. He's the only character in the game that can literally never eat because of the fact that you can heal yourself with souls. I should never see you dying as Wartox, unless you accidentally somehow broke your killer beehives. Oh yeah, he can also just eat said souls, which gives him no sanity penalty if he's on the naughty side of his skill tree. And if you're on the nice or neutral side though, it might be a little harder because of, sanity. But if you know how to kite like the only 2 sanity monsters in the game, then it's a joke. So don't worry too much. Yes, I know he gets 50% less benefit from mortal food, but honestly, you shouldn't even have to eat mortal food as Wartox like ever. Maybe every now and then to top off your sanity, that's all you gotta do. Or you can just sleep. I don't see enough people sleeping in this game, and it's surprisingly powerful. As for combat, again, I'm gonna put Wartox in very easy. Wartox has a playstyle for everybody. Do you want to turn your brain off and tank? Just bring enough souls to heal and some armor and you're good. Want to express a little more skill and dodge by using soul hops? Well, Wartox has got you. Other than his teleport and sack that's the equivalent to a dark sword under the right conditions for some reason, it's true that he fights like Wilson. But he fights like Wilson with a nearly infinite lazy explorer and nearly infinite heals as well, which makes the game significantly easier. To recap, yeah, if you want easy mode, pick Wartox. Even as a beginner, I highly doubt that you will struggle as this character, save for maybe sanity. But that's a hurdle that you can overcome pretty quickly. Nightmare creatures are not that hard unless you're in an active boss fight. Next up, we've got Wirt. And as for survival, I'm gonna go ahead and put Wirt on the easy scale. She doesn't have I win buttons like Wartox does, but she makes up for that by having minions. Now look, Wirt takes quite a bit of setup time, but time does not equal difficulty. It may be tedious to set up a Merm Empire, but it is oh so worth it. They'll work for you, farm crops for you, and overall, once you've invested a little time, Wirt should be unkillable. She is a vegetarian, which is more annoying than it is dangerous, especially because she gets a natural hunger buff from veggies for some reason. You don't even need a farm as Wirt, you can survive off of kelp alone. As for combat, well again, as long as you respect the time investment, Wirt is very easy. Merm armies can be ridiculous, even against AoE bosses. Why? Well, because they are smart. They use the Pigman AI, but also move like 50 times faster, meaning they will kite bosses. And you would be surprised how low the amount of merms you need to take down even late game bosses is. Just be extra careful in the ruins, because thanks to the new bishop changes, Wirt takes extra damage due to always having the wet tag. To recap, Wirt's a very easy character, but be prepared to sink significantly more time into her than other characters. She's like a proper summoner class. Next up, we have Walter, and whoo boy, did this guy's skill tree absolutely rocket him to the top of the game. Let's start with survival. It's very easy. Woby is a mobile drying rack, can help you mine, chop, and do work, and can even teleport you. Did I mention that he's completely immune to sanity effects? I mean, sure, you lose sanity when you take damage, but that's combat segment talk. And if you do lose sanity, well, Walter can just sleep and loses less hunger, giving him practically double sanity and health back. Not hunger, I almost said hunger. And if that wasn't enough, remember Wilson's whole beard thing? Yeah, Walter basically gets the same effects as a beard when riding on Woby, meaning winter should be a cakewalk. Walter's got so many survival effects, I can't even cover them all. But that's okay, because he is the Boy Scout character, so I would expect him to make survival a little easier. Now for combat, okay, I'll be fair here. I'll just put him at easy. Yes, ranged combat is so OP it's boring, and most of Walter's gameplay essentially becomes, well, what you are seeing on screen right now. But the only thing stopping Walter from being very easy is that if you do get hit, you will be punished hard. One good smack from a boss will drain all of your sanity, and even knock you off of Woby, causing you to take a second or even third hit, which is not very good. To recap, Walter is one of the easiest characters to master in the game, and trivializes survival, but treat him like a proper ranged character in combat, or you will suffer. Next up, we have Wanda, and this is probably going to be my most controversial one. Well, except for survival, because survival should be obvious. I'm putting Wanda at hard for survival. Why? Well, because her whole health gimmick hurts her day-to-day survival by quite a lot. Generally, if you're going to be damage maxing as Wanda, you're gonna want to be old. This cuts your effective max health down by a significant amount. Tie this with tick damage, like hunger and temperature damage being extremely deadly against her, and you have a character that will suffer immensely from average survival scenarios. Hell, I'm pretty sure I've only seen Wanda players die to earthquakes in the caves due to their low health pool. And now we're on to combat. Here's where some people may disagree, especially those of you who are experienced at the game. But for a base skill level player, Wanda's combat is actually going to be pretty hard. I know, it feels wrong for even me to say that, But remember, this is difficulty, not power. We all know that Wanda has the potential to be one of, if not the highest DPS character in the game. But in order to maximize that DPS, you've gotta play risky. You have to be old, which limits your max health, and then it comes to healing, which she has a pretty punishing cooldown for. Her only saving grace is her alarming clock, which absolutely shreds. But again, only if you are old and near death. To recap, I just want to again point out that while this difficulty rating may look absolutely ridiculous to experienced players, remember that Wanda is punishing. Making a mistake as Wanda is almost always lethal, whereas you have time to counteract it with other characters. Yeah, sure, I get it, she gets a free healing item, and her weapon is the most powerful weapon in the game, but remember that her healing items are on a cooldown. And not to mention, your heal can be cancelled if you get hit or take tick damage. So, yeah, just, again, please remember, this list is supposed to be difficulty, not raw power. I just really don't want any new players to pick Wanda thinking that it's a GG easy button like most experienced players say she is, when she's not. I mean, if you're a new player and you pick Wanda, you're gonna get steamrolled. I'm sorry, she just takes a decent amount of game knowledge and mechanical skills. And finally, Wonky. Why are you playing as Wonky? I don't know, man. Wonky is basically Wilson, but worse. You get movement speed, but that movement speed hurts you during fights, and you can't even throw poop like Wilbur, so yeah, I mean, easy ranking, all things considered. Hopefully this video helped you find out who you want to main, or hopefully it helped you understand your current main a little more. But either way, that's all the information I have for today. I'll see all of you in the next one. But until then, go ahead and check this video out on screen if you want to go ahead and watch more. Anyways, bye-bye everybody.